Let's ask a Nobel Prize-winning economist what he thinks of this tax bill. Edmund Phelps is the director of the Center on Capitalism and Society at Columbia University. He joins us here in studio. Thanks so much for joining us. Ned, let me ask you first of all what you think about the compromise. Is it good? Is it bad?
I don't have high expectations for it. I don't think there's a lot of bang for the buck there, really. I think maybe the holiday, the payroll tax holiday, will have some effect, but it's not going to make the difference between hiring somebody for 30 years and not hiring the person.
Well, they've only given the payroll tax holiday to the employee, and interestingly, haven't given any of that to the employer side. So it doesn't seem to motivate, or at least make hiring any less expensive.
Well, the employer can give them a wage cut then, in recognition of the tax holiday. But anyway, yeah, that's right. But that'll work in a year or two. That will be reflected in lower wages to the employee, offset by the lower taxes to the employee. So I mean, that will work out that way. So yeah, I don't see a lot of plus there. And on the minus side is the fact that certainly this second splash of fiscal stimulus has sent long-term interest rates up a bit. I'm surprised they didn't go up more. But who knows? Is
it a concern? Is that a real problem for growth? Because
I mean, you just wonder when the orgy of stimulus is going to stop, and they're going to start worrying about this tidal wave of entitlements and public debt that we're inundated with.
Ned, what would happen if we stopped everything right now and just let the cycle play itself out, in your view? Would we tip back into recession? Ben Bernanke in 60 Minutes said we're awfully close in terms of things not being so stable. What do you think would happen?
Well, you wouldn't want to be the president and take a chance like that, would you? I mean,
right.
It would just seem so. It must seem so very risky to the administration and to lots of members of the Congress. So it's understandable that they want this little bit of buttressing, this little bit of support.
But do you think the economy is that delicate at this point?
No, I don't think so. I think that there are lots of signs of some strengthening. Now, I saw that one of the standard forecasts is growth between this year, 2010, and next year of about 3.5%. Mm-hmm. Now, that would just be about enough to maintain the unemployment rate at wherever it is. Of course, it's bouncing around a bit, so we don't know exactly where it is. But that would be enough to maintain the unemployment rate where it is. To get the unemployment rate falling, we're going to need growth of output faster than 3.5%.
How do we do that? I'm sorry, Matt, but how do we do that? Because, you know, there's so many policies being kicked around right now.
Well, I think not enough credit is being given to good old-fashioned market forces. I don't like to sound like a stick in the wood or whatever the expression is, but stick in the mud.
Stick and wood are the same thing. Stick in the mud.
It works.
But the whole rhetoric around Washington is a little bit puzzling to me. I would say that we had a tremendous downturn. Fortunately, the Fed didn't make it worse. They poured on a lot of liquidity. They did some pretty good guesswork there. But then they took their eye off the ball. And then I think in the past 12 months or so, the Fed has been standing in the way of recovery. I think that because the Fed let the inflation rate fall from 2% down to 0.9%, it's let the price level sag about 3, 4, 5% below the trend path that it had been on before. So that's why I like QE2. I might be the only person I know who likes QE2, but I think we should. I think the Fed, in letting the price level sag and letting expectations of inflation sag, has done a disservice to the recovery, and it's high time that it correct that mistake.
We are back with Ned Phelps, the director of the Center on Capitalism and Society at Columbia University. We were just talking about it. If I were king of the world, or if you were king of the world, you'd overhaul the tax code.
Yeah. Sure.
And that would get growth.
But I wouldn't let you do it.
What do you think? You talked about prices can't be passed on from producers. That's a problem. But of course, the reason is that 9.8% unemployment, right? A lot of people are unsure about whether people who do have jobs are unsure about whether they'll keep their jobs.
Wait a minute. I spent my whole career trying to understand how fluctuations in output cause unemployment. And now you and lots of people are saying unemployment causes low output. I think we should get this straight. I don't think you should explain low output by
This isn't the final draft of my paper, by the way. It's just a rough draft.
How do we best increase output and fix things? You talk about
I think
innovation.
we should stop obsessing about aggregate demand, which is a great big long story, and we should start getting to the deep structure of the matter, the guts of the matter, and that's innovation.
So this isn't a demand problem, as folks have said.
It could have been a demand problem if the Fed had messed up very badly. Now the Fed has created a little bit of a demand problem in the past year, which it's now trying to rectify with QE2. But the great bulk of the downturn is certainly structural. It has to do with the overhang of houses. It has to do with the bad loans on the books of the banks, and it has to do with consumer indebtedness. But most of this is structural, and it all works out to dampen investment activity, and it's not a matter of not enough money chasing goods. It's not that.
You don't need to lower then taxes on capital income to boost investment activity.
Well, that could have structural effects. To say something is structural doesn't mean that it's beyond human intervention, you know.
Right.
It just means you got to think differently and think in terms of different channels.
You talk about innovation, though, and I understand why a great innovation would be so helpful to the U.S. economy, but who's going to discover the next internet? I mean, you can't just have that happen.
Just as a wild, sort of educated guess, I would say that 90% of productivity growth is not the result of the decade's best idea. It's just the result of literally millions of people in the economy experimenting every week or so, if not more frequently, to try to do things a little better or to bring out something that's newer and a little different. And that's where the productivity growth is coming. And what we need is more of that. And we need a lot, and most of it, of course, comes from new firms, not with mind-blowing, once-in-a-century ideas, but small ideas that make a difference and that will go over in the marketplace. And we got to help these startup firms.
So 10 seconds. What's the number one idea to help that happen? I got to ask you to be quick here.
The number one idea I have is the First National Bank for Innovation. That will provide credit with a little bit of government subsidy to startup firms to develop their innovative ideas.
All right. We're going to have you come back and talk a little bit more about that because it's an interesting idea.
Good.
Ned, thank you so much.
I'm here. Thank you.